Welcome to Tai Chi. Everybody ready? Let's warm up. Hands at your waist, turn your neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Stretch your neck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Turn your shoulders. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Expand your chest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Waist exercise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Airplane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Touch toe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Turn your hips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Be careful. Shift your weight to the left foot. Good Tai Chi posture. Kick your right foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Kick your butt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Turn your knees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Heisman, opening up your span, parallel feet, choose the right side, cross and sit on that side. Good Tai Chi posture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Short one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when we do our Heisman now, remember I said use good Tai Chi posture. So what we want to do is we want to line up our vertical dantian points through our head, through our chest, 2 inches below our navel. So this would not be lining up your vertical dantian points, okay? Neither would this be, okay? Although it's pretty near, but I'm still not stacked. What we want to do is we want to shift our weight and stack ourselves. And when we stack ourselves, we can then kind of turn our hips and waist. But don't worry about the turning first. You need to stack yourself straight up, okay? So whenever you do this, you use your arm and you say, am I stacked? Okay, am I stacked? So the knee that you're weighted on, to hold that weight, and you've learned that, has to be flexed. If it's not flexed, you're going to have a hard time because there's weight still here. It's impossible to shift your weight and stack yourself by not flexing that knee, okay? So it takes some practice, but because we warm up, every time we do Tai Chi, if we practice or do our routine wrong, it's going to be incorporated. So Ken was saying that, remember we do parting of the wild horse's mane and we say knee not beyond your toe, because once it goes beyond the toe, you're throwing your Tai Chi posture up, whereas you want to be stacked straight up. The knee is in line with the toe. So if we take it to Heisman, you want that knee in line with the toe, but once it goes farther out, you're going to be slanted at an angle and not stacked, okay? So you could use that as a guide, okay? All right, golden cockerel. Actually, yeah, is that right? Okay, good Tai Chi posture, but our feet are apart. We have our head straight up. We have our tongue on our palate. We have our chin slightly down and not parallel to the ground. However, our glance is way out into infinity. Our chest is hollow. So how can we hollow out our chest? By tucking our butt. Once we tuck our butt, the chest is relaxed and it's hollow. Okay? And good thoughts are going on in our mind. Okay? So when we're a golden cockerel, we're going to create spirals and we're going to shift our weight to the left. Here we go. Create your spirals coming up, pushing down, bringing up. Last set. Okay, when we kick out now, we're at 50-50, even distribution of weight. When we kick out right, we shift our weight to the left, and our right hand is on the outside of the cross. We tuck the elbows in, we center ourselves through our core, and then we kick out, following with our hand, following with our eye. Left hand on the outside, left foot coming up, left kick. Right hand, outside, right foot coming up and out. And we notice that the hand that sits to the back is on a counterbalance. Two hands cannot be in the same direction to be safe. Last set. So we're looking for a kick that's like a kick directed by our heel, not our toe, okay? Okay. Then we learned that we can put our hands at our waist. This is called a T stance because there's an appearance of a capital letter T. We learned that after a T stance, we can come out into the side and create an L stance by turning our hips and waist and then creating a bow stance, which is a bow in the front and an arrow in the back. We also said that the knee is never beyond the toes and the arrow is straight but not locked where the joint is frozen or cannot allow the energy to move. So there's a slight relaxation in the knee joint. Sit back, sit down on an imaginary stool. Only the insubstantial or weightless foot can then pivot. We root down for safety, we obey gravity, whereas our right foot will be the stem of the capital T. We step out into the side for an L. We turn our hips and waist because those are the commanders of our movement. Knee not beyond the toe, and 45-degree adjustment in the back foot, and knee not tight. Sit back, sit down, pivot, root down, make this a substantial foot, and the left foot an insubstantial, T stance, L stance, turn the hips and waist, O stance. Sit back, sit down, pivot, root down, T stance, L stance, turn the hips and waist, bow stance. Then we went on to say, after we sit down and we twist step, we can now match our upper body with our lower body. We can hold our Tai Chi ball with our right hand on the top and the left hand 2 inches below our navel. We can part the wild horse's mane. From a T stance, we went into an L stance, and the bottom hand advances to go up the horse's mane. Bow stance. Sit back, sit down. We can pivot on that insubstantial. We can make it a substantial by rooting down on a T stance, holding our ball and centering. So the top of our body is now helping us to center. We take an L stance. Our right hand as our bottom hand. It can advance to go up the horse's mane. Bow stance. Sit back, sit down, pivot, root down, T stance, L stance, part the wild horse's mane on a bow stance. Sit back, sit down, pivot, root down, T stance, L stance, bottom hand advances to go up the horse's mane. Sit back, sit down, pivot, hold your ball on a T stance. Then we went on to say that once we learned how to part the wild horse's mane, we can do a multitask to brush our knee. And that one kind of threw us for a little while, but then we've gotten better, so we need to remember how to do it. So the feet work remain the same. T stance, L stance, bow stance, sit back, sit down, twist step, and etc. It repeats. But this time, instead of holding a ball, one hand, the first time, is the left hand is by your shoulder and the right hand is up higher. It's not on the same plane, but the back hand is higher. And we said that we're going to be glancing at that back hand. We also learned that our body can multitask. It can do at least 3 things, if not more, altogether. So we said that to do 3 things altogether is kind of challenging, but we learned that the first thing that we have to do is bring the top hand to our ear. We're on a T stance, remember? So we want to get out into an L stance, but you're not going to do this, right? It looks funny and it's awkward. But we're going to use our hips and waist to help us move to get into an L stance. just the way it did when we were practicing. But in this position, all we need to do is set it up correctly and do 3 things. So this is the first thing, to the head. The second thing is to bring this hand slightly down. And together it goes like this. Together it goes like this. But there's a third element. The third element is like this. The third element is to get into an L stance, and then we turn our hips and waist, and the hands go for the ride. They brush your knee, sorta, okay? But good enough. So we're gonna set it up correctly. We're gonna be in a T stance, so are you. The left hand is by your shoulder, and your right hand is up higher. We want to do 3 things. Let's warm it up. First is bringing it to the ear, top hand to the ear, no problem. Second thing is 2 things. The left hand comes slightly down. Altogether, 2 things happen. But we want to brush our knee. So we're gonna have to set up our foot to be in balance. So the foot has, from a T stance, has to go to an L stance. But the energy is still on the back foot. The energy, just because it took an L stand, does not mean that there is weight here. So conceivably, you can come here and lift this foot up for me, okay? Or I can show you that I could do it. But everything starts to move when we do 3 things. But you don't have to worry, because we said the hips and waist bring you to turn around, to turn to brush your knee. So watch the other side. We sit back, because that's the pattern of our feet movement. We twist step. We T stance. We set up our hands correctly on the other side. We then said we need to multitask. From a T stance, we need to get into an L. But 3 things happen at an L stance. Ear, hand, heel, and then we just turn the hips and waist, and there we have it. We brushed our knee in a general way. But how do we brush our knee? We set it up correctly, and once you set it up correctly and you multitask, all it means is to turn the hips and waist, and it brushes your knee. So can we practice that, okay? So can we practice that? We're on a T stance. We have energy on our back or right foot. We are going to set it up correctly to brush our knee. Left hand pointing towards your shoulder, right hand up higher. And you're on a T stance, and you're glancing at the right higher hand. 3 things happen. First, the high hand comes to the ear. Can we do that 2 times? 1, 2. But 3 things happen. That's only 1. The second thing that happens that goes together with the first movement is to bring that left hand downwards, but not too far down, okay? I would say by your belly button, okay? So let's practice 2 things. Ear and hand. Again, ear and hand. Once we have ear and hand there, we need to add the foot on a heel to create an L stance. So let's do that. Ear, hand, heel. Do you look like me? How do you get to brush your knee? You turn your hips and waist and adjust your hands at the final movement. Sit back, sit down, twist step. Set it up, root down, set it up correctly. Left hand higher, right hand to your shoulder. 2 things happen with the hands. Ear and hand, ear and hand. But 3 things have to happen. Ear, hand, heel. Now just turn the hips and waist and let gravity take you down. Sit back, sit down, pivot, right hand higher, left hand to your shoulder on a T stance. We're going to brush our knee, but first set it up, then multitask, then what? Turn hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, left hand higher, right hand to your shoulder, T stance, multitask, ear, hand, and heel, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, right hand higher, left hand to your shoulder, T stance. You know what you're going to do. You're going to think it through. Your mind is active. Ear, hand, heel. Turn the hips and waist. Brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, left hand higher, rooted down on a T stance. 3 things happen. Ear, hand, heel, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, right hand higher, left hand to your shoulder, all together, ear, heel, hand, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. So I want to insert something. If you're set it up correctly and you multitask, use your hips and waist to get you to the final finish, okay? We're setting it up now. Left hand higher, right hand to your shoulder on a T stance. T stance. 3 things happen. Ear, hand comes down, heel comes out. Now turn the hips and waist. You don't have to worry about your hands. They just are attached to your body and it just brushes your knee for you. It's that simple. You've all gotten this, setting it up correctly. The next thing you have to do is do the 3 things. Then what do? Leave the hands there, turn the hips and waist, and they move with you. One more time, sit back, sit down, pivot, left hand higher, right hand to your shoulder, multitask, ear, hand, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, hold your ball on a T stance, okay? So now you watch me, okay, and see how simple it is. Okay, so what you're gonna look for is, how do I set it up? How do I multitask? And how do I use my hips and waist? Okay, those are the 3 things that you need to teach your body how to do. So this is my T stance, and this is my setting it up correctly. And I'm glancing at that backhand, whereas my vision is not anyplace else. I know where this hand is. So this is setting it up correctly. And another setting up correctly is that I'm rooted down, or I'm stored my energy on my right, on one side, to allow this foot to be weightless to move, okay? I need to know that. It's very important. So I set it up and I multitask. We said that 3 things happen. The ear and the hand, and the ear and the hand, and the heel. What do we do now? The right hand will remain my hand on the top will remain on the top, no matter what I do, because this is multitasking. When I turn my hips and waist, I have no problem. Whatever's on the top goes to the top, whatever's on the bottom goes to the bottom. No problem. Because you have to have the confidence that you have set it up correctly. Then you have to have the second element, which is have the confidence that you know that 3 things happen. Ear, hand, heel. Turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Now, does it look simple? Yeah, it does look simple. All you have to do is set it up. All you have to do is multitask. And all you have to do is make your hips and waist turn for you. If you add anything more, it'll get it all mixed up, okay? So have the confidence that you can set it up, you can multitask, and then you have your hips and waist to turn. What I was going to say was that when we do this movement correctly, you can see how powerful the energy that you have, and if generated in the right way, which we will eventually feel, the energy just makes you and helps you to move, to brush your knee. Right now we're pretty robotic, we're pretty mechanical, but I think that some of you can already feel that if you just let yourself go, the energy or the chi within you helps you with that movement. So just kind of watch, okay? So we say that sometimes, especially when we're viewing a person playing Tai Chi or performing, there's something magical. But it's all within the power of ourselves. When we set it up correctly and we multitask, hey, how come our hands went there when they didn't even move? They are attached to our body. They have nothing better to do but move with us. They can't do anything else. Just leave them there and they will do the work for you. The hands go for the ride. Anything else you do will make it a hand motion, and you know that Tai Chi addresses your core. So why would you want to ruin that? Don't use your hands. Let the hands go for the ride, because you have the power of the mind and you have the power of the core. And once you have that power and understanding, your hips and waist do the work for you. All right, let's do 2 sets really well and try to understand that the hands go for the ride, we need to set it up, we need to multitask, and we need to use our hips and waist, okay? T-stance, parallel and higher, okay? Set it up correctly. Multitask, leave the hands there, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly. T-stance, multitask, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly. Multitask, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, root down, set it up correctly, T-stance. Multitask, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, hold your ball. Okay, so I think that I can add something to it. You have to know your feet work. If you don't know your feet work, something's going to get tangled up. So the feet work are important. T stance, L stance, bow stance. Both ways, because I think one side is better for you than the other side, but they both have to be equally knowledgeable or equally talented, okay? So once you have your feet all laid out, then the upper body then you can focus on the upper body. But when the feet don't know what to do, then the hands get involved and they stumble, they don't know what to do. It kind of snowballs. So make sure you know what you do with a T stance, L stance, and a bow stance, okay? Any questions on this? So I want to move on, but I know that people are still being challenged, and rightfully so. It is the hardest movement in the 10 form, okay? Or one of the hardest. You'll meet others, but they have their little quirks or goofiness about it. But once you are able to master any of the movements or all of the movements, you'll say, wow, this really makes sense. But up until that point, it's kind of a little goofy all the time. All right, we're going to come away from brushing our knee, come away from parting of the wild horse's mane, and we're going to tackle one more before we go back to repulsing of the monkey. The one more I think you might enjoy also. It can be one of the prettiest, okay? It's called grasping of the bird's tail. So the tail of a bird is not heavy, it's light, and so it kind of follows into Tai Chi in that you don't need much strength, but you need your body to move to bring down the bird's tail. But it's disguised because Tai Chi is a martial arts discipline. So you're actually bringing down your opponent, but it's set in a graceful imagery. We pull down the bird's tail or we grasp the bird's tail. Grasping of the bird's tail is the name of the movement. However, there are two components to it. The first component is that we have to ward off our opponent. We use our forearm and we push him away. Then we turn our hips and waist and we grasp the bird's tail and we pull down the bird's tail, as if we're pulling down the opponent. And then this one might be a forceful one where we're pushing him away. We're rolling him back and we're pushing him down. And yet, one more time, we're pushing him out. The other side looks the same. We are on a T stance. We're centered with a ball. We come out on an L stance. The bottom hand forearms the opponent. We turn our hips and waist. We reposition our hands. We grasp the bird's tail by pulling down, sitting down, turning at the hips and waist, contacting, turning at the hips and waist, pushing the energy through the middle of our body, separating our energy and rolling back, pushing our opponent down, sitting down, spiraling up and lunging forward. Okay, let's try that, okay? Let's go a little slowly, but you remember that when we go slowly, it's a little harder, okay? On a T stance, left foot is ready to go, so left hand is on the bottom because the left hand has to advance, okay? The left hand has to advance. The right hand is on the top. We're holding our ball. We're gonna first learn how to grasp the bird's tail, but the two components are first to ward off our opponent using your forearm, okay? And that's the bottom left hand. T stance, L stance. Bottom hand advances, ward off by forearming your opponent. Turn your hips and waist, and the hands look like this, staggered, but sort of palm to palm. Now you're gonna pull down, pull back. Use your hips and waist to look back. You're gonna contact by your wrist. The right hand is on the wrist of the left, turning our hips and waist, moving that energy, pushing the energy through, separating our hands, rolling back and sitting down, spiraling up and lunging forward on a bow stance. We have to do the other side now. Sit back, sit down, twist step. Left hand stays on the top, right hand on the bottom, holding your ball. T stance. What are we going to do? The name of the movement is called grasping of the bird's tail. The first component is to ward off your opponent. The bottom hand advances. Right foot ready to go, right hand ready to go on an L stance. T stance, L stance. Bottom hand advances, wards off or forearms your opponent. Turns the hips and waist, reposition your hands so that they're staggered and palm to palm. You're going to grasp the bird's tail. Sit down, sit back, turn at the hips and waist to look back. Contact at your wrist, turn at the hips and waist, push the energy through the middle of your body, separate the hands, roll back and sit down, and spiral up. Twist step, T stance, ward off. L stance, forearm your opponent. Turn your hips and waist, grasp the bird's tail. Use your hips and waist to look back. Contact, use the hips and waist to touch and push through. Separate and roll back and sit down. Spiral up and lunge forward. Twist step. T stance, holding your ball. We're going to grasp the bird's tail, but first ward off. L stance, bottom hand forearms our opponent. Turn the hips and waist, reposition your hands, grasp the bird's tail. Contact, turn at the hips and waist, push the energy out, sit back, sit down, spiral up, lunge forward. Twist step. P stance, hold your ball. L stance, ward off. Turn the hips and waist, grasp the bird's tail. Contact, turn, push, separate, roll back, sit down, spiral up, lunge forward, twist, step, T stance, L stance, ward off, turn hips and waist, grasp the bird's tail. Look back, contact, turn at the hips and waist, center of the body, push the energy through, separate the hands and roll back and sit down, and spiral up and lunge forward. Twist, step. Okay, stop. You stop and watch now, okay? T stance, L stance, O stance. Turn hips and waist, grasp the bird's tail. Contact. Turn again, push from the center, energy out, energy back, energy up, energy out. Twist, T, L, ward off. Turn hips and waist, grasp the bird's tail. Contact, turn, push energy from the middle of the body, roll back, sit down, spiral up, lunge forward. So you can almost generalize to say that if the hands are set up correctly, they just sit there and they just move with whatever T stance, L stance, both stance, sit back, sit down with you. You don't have to do anything extra for your hands in a general way. So if you know your feet positions really, really well, and there's always that pattern, then if you study your upper body and you say, I know how to set it up, I know what the movement is, it's brush knee or it's grasping the bird's tail or it's warding off, all you have to do is set it up and your body will then take your hands for where it should go, okay? So that maybe seems like to you maybe not so true, but slowly you will understand what I'm trying to say, okay? All right, this is how we do grasping of the bird's tail. Out and to the side, first ward off your opponent. Push him away using your core. So if I didn't know that and I would use my hands, I would just use my hand to push him away. That's not going to work. It's not going to work. We need to use our core. That's why Tai Chi will strengthen your core. That's why it'll prevent your accidents from happening, but no guarantee. So there's something going on in my core and not just a hand motion, okay? It's something that's tightening up and powering my forearming of, or warding him off. I use my hips and waist. My hands don't have to worry. All I need to do is reposition my hand. Now, how am I going to get my hands back there? I need to get back here. But how am I going to power it? I'm going to use my core by sitting down, sitting back, turning my hips and waist. Eye contact. How do I get back to the front? Just push it here? No. We have hips and waist that turn and pushes our energy through. We roll back, and how do my hands come down? Do I just bring them down? No. I sit down. How do I get back up? I come up, I lunge forward. Twist step, T stance, centered myself, thinking it through. How am I going to ward off? I'm in a T, I need to get into an L. Bottom hand advances. How am I going to push him away? Where is that power? Coming from my core. How am I going to get my hands there to grasp the bird's tail? I turn my hips and waist. Then I join my hand, staggered my hand, palm to palm, but staggered. I want to get back there. How? I sit down, sit back. I turn my hips and waist. Eye contact. What do I do now? Turn the hips and waist, push the energy through, separate the energy and roll back and sit down. My hands go for the ride. How do they get back up? I bring my sitting down into a better position, okay? So it looks like, yeah, well, you can do it, but you've been doing it for a long time. I know, but you will do it for over a period of time, and it will get better. And the nice part about it is that you will be gaining health benefits, not just mind being active, but the core being stronger, knowing more about your body and what you can do to help it to get to that movement, realizing, yes, I'm having a little trouble processing it, but nothing comes easy. If you are aware of something that is a deficit and you feel that you want to overcome it, then what do? You go continue to practice till you overcome that. And that is beauty in itself. That's strength, that's power. But are you going to wait around for somebody else to tell you to do that and do it for you? No. So you are empowering yourself by doing Tai Chi, okay? So every week I come and every week I know what you're doing, or I see the improvement. The people that I don't really see, I see it in the camera view when I'm editing. And I can see where I need to teach, shore up the little weak areas, but I do see progress. But you can't compare your progress to others that you see, even to me, okay? Because you're on your own journey. I was there too, okay? Everybody has a time when they have to struggle and be challenged. That's part of learning. And it becomes more powerful once you are successful in reaching that movement. But remember now, we don't jump from 0% accomplishment all the way to even 90%. We just go in little increments, because this is a journey over a lifetime. But the more that you do, the more that the more complicated movements can be tackled and understood, because Tai Chi's movements are not just isolated. They are looped together with the same types of discipline of the core and the movement of the patterning of the feet, okay? Over time, you will get stronger in your limbs, in your arms, in your legs, and so you'll be able to take the slowness and understand the pacing a little bit more, okay? So these are all things that we're working towards even for us.
How many of you remember me talking about the 10 Essentials of Tai Chi as put out by the master Yang Cheng Fu? Remember? Anybody look it up? Please go and look it up. It's a bunch of words, and when you first look at it, you say, what is this guy trying to tell me? But as you start to master different movements and concepts of Tai Chi, you come to understand how each point is suggested that you employ when you're doing your Tai Chi. It really is helpful. Another thing, we talk about the core, and I must say, if 20 years ago somebody talked to me about the core, I would say, what? What is that? And now it's almost passé in a lot of ways. The core is the central part of your body, okay? Some people say, well, it's only the torso. I tend to include the big muscles of our bodies. This is the biggest bunch of muscles in our body, along with your waist, your back, your shoulder girdle. Those are the places that you're trying to learn to use and you want to strengthen. And that's where the martial arts business comes in. These are movements that have, over the centuries, have been used to develop physical bodies. And how you move that in a martial arts situation determines how good you're going to be to a significant degree. For us, we just have to get reacquainted with that, our core. And maybe instead of being 20 years old and walking on, or younger, an automatic pilot, we say, what core? I can do anything you want me to do physically. The rest of us, as we get older, we can't do it. And now we're trying to teach you in a didactic way. Hey, get back to the core. And you got to say, what's the core? The core is the central parts of your body. And it helps you strengthen yourself, and then it helps you to coordinate. But you say, why do I have to strengthen and coordinate? Well, then you have to ask yourself, why do I stumble and why do I fall? Because you may not have the strength or coordination. So you're trying to teach that, okay? And in athletics, there are the skilled positions and the not skilled positions. If you put it in the body, you can almost make an analogy and say, the core is the unskilled. These are the grunts, and they do all the hard work. And the skilled guys do the passing, or do the curve balls, or do the fast double plays, because they can do their acrobatics. But in order to be able to do good finesse movements, you should have a good base. And that's why I say you form your strength, or develop your strength and your coordination in your core, so that you're not walking around and using your fingers and your hands to try to get around. You get your body either in the right configuration, so whatever potential missteps you could have, you prevent that. But then if you're walking along and you've worked on your core, and your central body strength gets you to sort of where you want to go, but not quite, and you need a finishing, just movements of the hands, fingers, okay? And that's what helps you. Otherwise, if you're groping around and you're using up here fine movements and fine control to control that you don't fall, I think, overloading the situation, versus if I just go up to the door or whatever and I turn, the central part is taking care of me, but I make a slight error or I need an adjustment, just with the hands. I sort of found that with myself, because sometimes all of a sudden something slips and it falls. And I must say, all I do is, and I usually catch it before it falls. And I sort of wonder, how come I do that? Because I'm not straining myself and saying, I got to get there. You just pop your hand out, because you're steady here. You just pop your hand out, and it drops in your hand. And you say, wow, that's pretty good. But that's what I've found personally on my journey. So develop your core so that you can use your hands and your toes and feet for more precise movements.
But so in the past couple of sessions now, we've tweaked it so we teach towards the principles. So you could conceivably take any form of Tai Chi as long as you apply the principles and learn the form very well. Okay? More on that next time. Let's end class with the 10 form, okay, as best as you can. Okay? Good Tai Chi posture, dropping those shoulders, good thoughts, tongue on the palate, butt tucked under. Commencing form, shift weight to the right, off the ground, toe, arch heel, hands rotate to the middle of the thighs. Take a deep breath in as we elevate both hands. At shoulder level, drop the shoulder, flex the knee. Left hand remains in the center, right hand up higher. As we glance, we open the palms to the ceiling. We bring the back hand to our ear. We turn our head and neck. We meet the hands in the middle. We push forward the top hand. We pull back the bottom hand. Right hand remains in the center. Left hand up higher. We open the palms to the ceiling. We bring the back hand to our ear. We turn our head and neck. We meet hands in the middle. We slide forward, we slide back. T stance. Right hand higher, we're going to brush our knee. Energy stored on the right foot. All together, multitask. Ear, hand, heel. Turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, left hand higher, T stance, right hand to your shoulder, set it up correctly. Multitask, 3 things happen, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, hold your ball on a T stance. We're going to part the wild horse's mane. Take an L stance, bottom hand advances to go up the horse's mane. Sit back, sit down, pivot, left hand on the top, right hand on the bottom, holding your ball. Right foot on an L stance, bottom hand, right hand goes up the horse's mane. Flip the forward hand, join it with the back hand. Cloud hands. Sit back, sit down, pivot. 12 o'clock, we have a stem and we have a cup. We want to get out to the 9 o'clock, so we're going to pivot on our left heel, and our body moves our hands there, and 2 things happen. Flip the hands, close the feet. 12 o'clock, we have a stem and we have a cup. 3 o'clock, 2 things happen. We flip the hands and we open the feet. 12 o'clock, stem, cup. This time at 9 o'clock, we're only going to flip our hands. 12 o'clock, stem, cup. 3 o'clock, 2 things happen. Flip the hands, close the feet. 9 o'clock, 2 things happen. Flip the hands, open the feet. 3 o'clock, only 1 thing happens. Now we're going to shift our weight to the left and what? Become a golden cockerel. And shift our weight to the right and become a golden cockerel standing on its right. And we're going to kick out 50-50, right hand on the outside, right foot coming up, kick out, right. Shift weight to the right, left foot comes up, left hand comes up, kick out, left. Holding our ball on a T stance, right foot ready to go, and right hand on the bottom, we're going to grasp the bird's tail. We're going to first step out on an L, bottom hand advances to ward off our opponent, push him out. We're going to turn our hips and waist, and we're going to grasp the bird's tail. We're going to look back by turning our hips and waist, contact, turning our hips and waist, pushing out the energy, separating the hands and rolling back and sitting down, and sitting, lunging forward. Sit back, sit down, twist step, right hand on the top, left hand on the bottom on a T stance. We're going to ward off our opponent. Out on an L, bottom hand advances, pushes him out with the left hand. Turn our hips and waist to grasp the bird's tail. Turn at the hips and waist to look back. Contact, turn at the hips and waist to push the energy through. Separate the energy and roll back and sit down. Spiral up, lunge forward. We're going to apparently close. Twist step, open step, in step. Embrace the tiger by tucking the right hand inside the cross, shifting your weight over, bringing him up, rotating on your wrists. At chest level, you're going to bring the tiger closer to you, and then one final time, push him out. Separate the hands and energy, drop the shoulders, flex the knees, let gravity take you back home to close your form. Okay, so you can see that it's kind of bringing all our movements to a nice sequence. And so that's our goal for the next, I'm gonna say 7 weeks, right? We have 7 more weeks. So really good job. I see a lot of progress, although you may think it's still rudimentary, but hey, any progress is really great. Okay, see you next time. Good job.